to welcome you to day 5 of the 7th Annual Criminal Law Review Conference 2025. Today, we are discussing the all-important topic, Beyond the Household, Legal Protections, Lacunas, Legislation, and the Rights of Domestic Workers in Nigeria. We welcome you. We assure you that the session would be very insightful. May we kickstart the event with an opening prayer. We would call on any volunteer watching us from the glass house of Kogi State Government House to please give us an opening prayer before we take the national anthem. Mr. Aclrc, over to you, please. Could you have someone give us the opening prayer?
Okay, let's try.
We can't hear you.
My name is
We can't hear you anymore, sorry.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. My name is Oyetunji Ojuokai Esquire, Ministry of Justice. I've been asked to pray. Shall we pray? Our Father,
may we rise, please?
In the mighty name of Jesus, we thank you for this morning. We thank you because we are about to start this program. We invite you to be our guide and also guide us through the events today, the program that is going to be a successful event, full of deliberations that will make our society better. We ask all this through our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you very much. Please, may we have our seats. Before we proceed, we'd like to acknowledge the presence of special guests who have made a time to be here with us today. We want to recognize the presence of the coordinator of the Rule of Law Development Foundation, Mr. J.B. DAUDU, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Please let's give a round of applause for putting this event together, 5-day event, a very serious event. We want to recognize the presence of the chairman of the session, my Lord, the Honorable Justice M.A.R. Oredola, retired. Please let's give a round of applause. We want to acknowledge the presence of the lead presenter, Mrs. Ozioma Izuora, an expert in the field. Please let's give a round of applause. We want to also welcome other discussants, Mr. Hyginus Ibega. Please let's give a round of applause. We want to acknowledge the presence of Linda Raji. A round of applause, please. We also have with us here Dr. Balogun Makanjola. We welcome you. We also welcome our Leonard Silk, Adedayo Adedeji, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Thank you very much for being here. We acknowledge all delegates from far and wide. We want to thank the Kogi State government, judges, magistrates, directors, heads of institutions who have attended this event. We thank all delegates from the law firms as well, the FCTA, the Body of Ventures, FCT High Court. Thank you very much. We would like to acknowledge the presence of dignitaries who are watching us from the glass house of Kogi State. Mr. Aclrc, could you please?
Yes, sir. Good morning, the chairman of this section. Here with us this morning from the banquet hall of government of Kogi State is the permanent secretary and Solicitor General of Ministry of Justice, in person of Musa Yusuf Fadilat. We also have in our midst Ibrahim Idei, Director, Citizens' Rights, Iye Idama, the DPP, Ministry of Justice, Kogi State. Also with us is Opanachi Mohammed, Director, Legal Drafting. We also have Kamis Yusuf, Director, Legal Advisory Services. We have Mr. Atuli Stanley, Director, Gender-Based Violence. Also in our midst is Dr. Abdullahi Wahab Zakari, Director, Civil Litigation, who is also with us here in the hall. And with us too is J.O. Ajewole, the past chairman, MBA Lokoja. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Akimaudu. Please let's give all of them a round of applause. Before we begin to hear the presentations, we'd like to take profiles of each of the distinguished discussants to give us an idea of their professional background so that we can be appetized. The first is the chairman, my Lord, the Honorable Justice M.A.R. Oyedola JCA, retired. He has extensive years of legal experience, having served on the Court of Appeal before his retirement. His tenure as a judge involved numerous significant rulings, judgments, which contributed greatly to Nigerian jurisprudence. He is known for his wisdom, respect for the rule of law, and respect for the rule of law. Following his retirement, he has been involved in various legal and judicial activities, including serving on chairman of several panels and committees. He is known for his just approach to adjudication in a manner consistent with legal standards, ethical principles, and the rule of law. Please let's give him a round of applause. Mrs. Ozioma Izora. She's a seasoned legal professional with a robust background in law, language education, and alternative dispute resolution. She was admitted to the Nigerian Bar in January 2001 and has been practicing law for over 2 decades. She's also a certified mediator and arbitrator with a fellowship from the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, UK. Madam Ozioma is an accomplished writer. She was nominated for the Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas Literature Prize in 2008 and won the ANA NDDC Kensariwa Prize in 2009. Her literary work, A Bee to Polling Drone, further reflects her versatility in the arts. Since completing her training with Chartered Institute of Arbitrators in 2004, she has been actively engaged in arbitration, notably participating in the William C. Vismuth arbitration in Vienna from 2005 to 2008. She's played a foundational role in the establishment of the Abuja chapter of Chartered Institute of Arbitration, serving as secretary of the steering committee under Mr. P.I.N. Ikweto, Senior of Nigeria. She has served in various leadership roles within the chapter, including public relations officer, and is currently the second vice chair. Madam Ozioma is an active member of several international arbitration associations, such as the International Chamber of Commerce, ICC, African Arbitration Association, and Arbitral Women. She has completed various training courses and in specialized areas, including international investment arbitration. Madam Ozioma's professional journey is marked by her dedication to the practice of law, her commitment to alternative dispute resolution, and her contributions to legal education and literature in Nigeria. Please let's give her a round of applause. Next we have Linda Raj. She's a development professional with over 9 years experience in program management, advocacy, community mobilization, and sensitization. She holds a bachelor's degree in English and literary studies from the Kogi State University. As a change agent, she is most passionate about advocating for adolescent girls, boys, and young women's rights, health, and well-being through regular community organizing outreaches. From my experiences working with young people, she develops and contributes to manuals equipping young people's agents for decision-making, and provides technical guidance to support national stakeholders towards policy formulation, including agencies such as the UNESCO, the Federal Ministry of Education, and Federal Ministry of Health. She is the 2025 network representative for the Frederick Herbert Stiftung Nigeria's Open Mind Young Voices Youth Network, where she leads the alumni body advocating for justice and good governance. As a certified lay counselor, she volunteers with Sunshine Series Mind Wheel Project to offer psychological support to Nigerians during the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown, and has provided counseling to adolescent girls and young people experiencing psychological distress from sexual and gender-based violence. Please let's give her a round of applause. She is currently the Program Officer with Rule of Law Development Foundation, where she leads advocacy and sensitization programs targeted at social behavioral change and economic empowerment of vulnerable boys and young people in underserved communities, such as the Project Hope for the Boy Child Initiative. Please let's give a round of applause. And lastly, but not the least, we have Mr. Hyginus Ibega. He's an experienced legal practitioner with over a decade of active legal practice in the Nigerian bar, a graduate of Enugu State University, Science and Technology, and Nigerian Law School, Abuja. He was groomed in the law firm of J.B. DAUDU Senior Advocate of Nigeria, one of the foremost litigation firms in Nigeria. He's a vibrant legal practitioner with significant experience in helping individuals and corporate clients in driving growth and solving complex problems. As principal partner of Shaw Park Attorneys, a full-time service law firm based in Abuja, Mr. Hyginus has advised and represented over 300 clients in solving complex legal problems with ease, speed, and efficiency. His expertise lies in courtroom advocacy, in-depth analysis of laws, cases, regulatory and contractual policies to deliver sustainable results. He is a look-up to the younger folks in the Nigerian legal sphere. Mr. Hyginus enjoys reading, playing the piano, and volunteering with organizations in legal monitoring. I almost forgot one of our very key discussants today, Dr. Balogun Makonjola Christopher. Please let's give him a round of applause. He works with the Federal University Lokoja, where he serves as a senior deputy registrar. He was the former head of admission division of the university and presently head of administration and research center at the head of administration, which also serves as a research center for International Center for Climate Change, Floods and Environmental Sustainability. He's a seasoned administrator, researcher, and a sports enthusiast. He's published several publications and papers. He plays professional basketball. He played professional basketball during his days as a student and was a recipient of several awards. He's trained in the martial arts experts and a black belt and an instructor. Please let's give him a round of applause. I hope we are safe today. Without further ado, I'll hand over to the chairman to take the process on. Thank you very much, sir.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. It is my singular honor, though a humble one, to first of all abide by the protocols established by the MC so as not to waste more time, to welcome delegates and participants worldwide, both in attendance and virtually, to this 7th Annual Criminal Law Review Conference 2025, organized by the Rule of Law Development Foundation under the able leadership of the founder / coordinator in the person of, if I say chief now, I will run into trouble. So I will just say Mr. J.B. DAUDU, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, and his very supportive staff. The topic for discussion this morning will seem mundane and might not want to seem as brain-racking as one would have thought. But I want to assure you that with the caliber of the lead presenter, the discussants, I want you to have open minds because we will all leave this place today better informed and more invigorated to do things in this sphere of this topic. So the topic is going to be very intensive, and I will be expecting a very interactive session. Well, coincidentally, today being Friday, we won't be able to drag it too long, but we will get the best that we can get. So our lead presenter, as she has been introduced, She is renowned for her erudite and well-researched paper, and I believe so, all the discussants too. So in this vein, I won't be making any opening remark. I don't want to preempt what the lead presenter and the discussants will put forward for us to chew. I will leave whatever I want to say to my closing remarks. So in this vein, I'll be inviting the lead presenter, Dr. Mrs. Ozioma Izora, to come and present a paper. Please give her a big round of applause. She has assured me that she will talk to the paper. Because we are time conscious, Madam, 20 minutes.
Thank you, sir, Mr. Chairman. My Lord. What happened now? Please, is the slide up? Can the slide go up, please? Can the slides please go up? Right. Good morning, Chief J. DAUDU, founder of Rule of Law Development Foundation. Good morning. Oh, SAN, so sorry. Other SANs, and I've been told I have 20 minutes. Okay. I think this topic should have been within the household rather than beyond the household, because we're talking about the rights of domestic workers and they work within the households. Please just move with the slide so we can be fast. Thank you. So I have laid out what I did, had an introduction, then the general purpose, content of the bill, then the background of this thing, the convention that started the conversation, being the ILO Convention number 189. Then I did an overview of rights of workers in Nigeria before we enter domestic workers. Then what challenges do I foresee for the proposed law? Well, it was proposed at the time I got it, then it became a law, and then I made some recommendations. I'm sorry if like my slides kind of scattered. Please next. I hope this won't be a problem. Okay, so the bill that came out was a bill for an act to regulate and formalize the employment of domestic workers, apprenticeships, interns, and other informal sector employees, and to empower the National Directorate of Employment (NDE) to issue licenses and monitor privately owned employment agencies. So there are three components there. There is the law itself that will take care of domestic workers generally, and there is the licensing of private agencies, and what's the other one? We'll get that. Now this law has been passed, this bill has been passed into law. And I say it was patterned along the C189 convention. And then this has been hailed by the executive, Minister for Labor, Minister for Employment, has been hailed as part of what they were already doing, trying to reform the labor laws in Nigeria. So it arrived at a good period. Next, please. Yes, so who are domestic workers? So let's look at domestic workers in social cultural context. Okay, these people are the people who you see every day but you don't see. Okay, because in our social cultural lifestyle, since the beginning, and when I say our, I mean globally, they have always been part of every homestead. And because they were there, when the colonialists came, they also needed people to serve them. They couldn't speak the language, they couldn't make their way around. So the idea of having boys, you know, when you have a house, you have boys' quarter. That's where it came from. The boys stayed there and came and served the masters. So we have practices that exist that also were good. Okay? So in between, the ones that came and encouraged servitude and some of those that even became foundation of the African Charter because they reflected the ethnocentric, Afrocentric nature of Africa, where people helped each other, groomed each other within a community. Next, please. So let's look at positive aspects, and I latch on to the Igbo apprenticeship scheme, where the boys who served their masters and were settled, and they became their own, and there were many, there are many millionaires that came through the system. So I see this as an institutional way of progressing, training people, training businessmen. And I understand that it's already been studied in Harvard and all of that. So, and if you're a social media person, you would have seen cases where boys had issues with their masters, and they were already a platform, they were chairman, every cluster. Listen, when I lost my laptop and all that, I was told that there are groups, there were associations of every level of business. So when there's a problem within, they have mechanism for sorting them out. So I see this as positive, and we could do more. Move on, please. Unfortunately, the government has not taken interest into this, even though I hear some thought leaders, including Chidoka, who was here. He's done some work on the Igbo apprenticeship scheme and how that can be replicated. Even in MBA, we've done something, especially among Igbo lawyers, where we now have young lawyers being apprenticed to the senior lawyers and all that. So let's look at something it takes. I'm not aware of any equivalent for kind of regulated in that way, not regulated by law, for the girl child. In the main, girls are procured and by agents, you know. If you raise children, and I raised 5, my life was a collection of the girls that came. There was a time we ran into schemes where they would send you a girl, 3 months you depended on this girl, and then they came and called her, said somebody was dying at home, and they would send you somebody else. It became a racket. All sorts of things went on. There were no contracts, no negotiations. Sometimes the salaries don't get to the children. Sometimes the children were underaged and all that. However, what else is here at the back? They were prone to exploitation against the spirit of the Child Rights Act. If you look from sections 28 to 30 of the Child Rights Act, you see the prohibition and the way the law tried to guide if they have to work, what sort of work and within what family and all of that. Next, please. Did I say the boy child were included? Also, yeah, boys who were employed to be house boys and security and all of that. So, yes. Stories abound about madams who run beer parlors and on the side pimp out their mates to their customers for extra cash. Often, these young ones bear the brunt of their masters or madam's anger, including being inflicted with burns from hot water or oil or hot iron or and all that. So punishment. If you're in the social media space, you will see endless examples of children being abused. Some locked out, left to sleep outside. Their story is at best a horror story. Some of them. Next slide, please. Now, there's a mixed bag. These domestic workers, they have so far depended on the goodwill of their employers. So far, too, except where they've been lucky to have their plight reported to NAFTA or Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Welfare at the state or federal or NGOs like FIDA. These victims of harsh treatments in households have often been left to their fates. Unfortunately, instances abound where law enforcement has failed to appropriately address issues of domestic violence when reported. Some have been lucky, to find employers who took care of them and even helped them through school, helped their relations. Next slide, and all that. So it's a mixed bag and all that. Now, due to the unregulated nature of domestic work, these workers have no inkling about what a contract of labor portends. Many times they have abandoned their work without notice, leaving families they used to serve high and dry. Some criminal elements among them have brought untold hardship to even those who have treated them well. Remember the professor whose maid organized to have hacked to death? A lot of these circumstances can be seen as resulting from poor educational background of the domestic staff, for whom going to live in strange households, sometimes from very young age, was necessitated by poverty. For the recipients, the homes that take them in, it's a matter of convenience. Some families too let their children out of greed, and the young ones often suffer double jeopardy. Sometimes the money paid to them is confiscated, and they become nothing more than slaves. And when I say this, some of them suffer, even the adults among them. Some people, because of the power they have over the person that is sent out, the money is paid. Like some women who work in households, just give the money to their husbands who squander the money drinking or chasing other women and all of that. Please, let's go. Now, the other aspects of this discussion that I should look at are the laws, and then examine provisions for unionization, formal contracts, minimum wage, etc. We will look at this. Next slide, please. And then, so that's best practices, yes. So the purpose of that bill, from what I could gather, because I didn't get a copy of the bill to look at, and I did try, was to establish a formal legal framework for the regulation of domestic work, advance national labor reforms, align Nigeria's labor standards with international human rights obligations, extend essential labor protection to domestic workers, set clear standards for employment, mandatory contracts, and integration of domestic workers into the national system for social support and protection. Next slide, please. Now, minimum wage, these are the key provisions. Minimum wage guarantees and regulated working hours, entitlement to rest periods, annual leave, sick leave, access to health insurance, and social security schemes, protection against abuse, harassment, and unjust dismissal. Next slide. Now, the implications for stakeholders. Stakeholders including you and I who employ them. So there will be strengthening of workers' rights in accordance with C-189. My slide, please. I'm sorry. Can I have the slide back? Or I should open it on my computer, I don't know. Is there a problem? Okay. Promoting social and economic inclusion, access to social protection, employment benefits, contributing to broader goals of poverty reduction and inclusion in the national economic system, advancing labor market reform by encouraging the formalization of domestic work arrangements, improving transparency, and I'm sorry, I don't know what that is. Okay, this will be a step, we hope, to reducing informality in Nigeria's labor market and strengthening employer accountability. They're supporting collective bargaining. That means they will have right to go on strike and all that, and all of that, fair wages. I'm repeating some of this. Please, next slide. So the background to the C-189, first of all, it was we need to trace this journey so we know what seriousness to take. ILO has been there since forever. Okay, 1999 was even there before the United Nations. So they have always tried to improve the rights of workers in all its ramifications, all their ramifications. At the 100th session held in 2011 was when C-189 was envisioned as a document that will prescribe how best to promote decent work for all through the achievement of goals of the ILO Declaration on Fundamental Principles and Rights at Work and the ILO Declaration on Social Justice for Fair Globalization. Okay, thank you. So the ILO had this vision that the law will come in place that would become a global way of doing things. Next, please. Now, the rationale is this significant contribution domestic workers make to global economy, and it will increase paid job opportunities for women and men. Workers with family responsibilities, greater scope for caring for aging population, children, and persons. You see, it's a two-way thing. We need them to help us. They also need to be well taken care of and brought into the mainstream of like other workers. So I need you to note when I show the next is that ILO has international coverage. So its work will include migrant workers. It's not just about what happens within states, that is within countries. Next, please. Okay, so above all, domestic work continues to be undervalued, invisible, and is really carried out by women and girls, many of whom are migrants or members of disadvantaged communities and who are particularly vulnerable to discrimination in respect of conditions of employment and of work, and to other abuses of human rights, especially in developing countries with historically scarce opportunities for formal employment. And domestic workers constitute a significant proportion of the national workforce and remain among the most marginalized. Next, please. Now, ILO reiterated its succeeding instruments. It has done workers' rights or Migration for Employment Convention of 1949, Migrant Workers Supplementary Provisions 75. It has Workers with Family Responsibility Convention 1981, Private Employment Agencies Convention 1997, Employment Relationship Recommendation 2006, on and on like that. So these are cumulative. C-189 is cumulative of all the endeavors that have been carried out by ILO in this regard. Next slide, please. Have I seen this? Yeah, please, next slide. Yeah, so the other relevant instruments which you know, the Universal Declaration, which gives rights to everybody, international covenants, all of this, including CEDAW, all cumulatively, they contribute different aspects. Some focus on the work itself, some on harassment, some sexual, and all. Treatment of migrants. So all these are accumulated in what became the C-189 in 2011. Next, please. Yes, right. So Article 1 of that C-189 defines domestic work to mean work performed in or for a household or households. That's why I say this should be within the household, not beyond it. So Article 1B also defines domestic worker to mean a person engaged in domestic work, obviously. Note, however, that Article 1C excludes a person who performs domestic work only occasionally or sporadically and not as on an occupational basis. By Article 3, states are obliged to make laws and create institutions to promote the provisions of the convention. Next, so when Nigeria is signing, Nigeria better know what is signing off. I mean, it has signed, so if you're saying you're implementing, you need to know all this. So the rights now assured to work are freedom of association, effective recognition of the rights of collective bargaining, elimination of all forms of forced or compulsory labor, effective abolition of child labor, elimination of discrimination in respect of employment and occupation, and all of that. I'm running because I'm told my time is. So note that there is the minimum age requirement, and then there's also the worst forms of child labor convention, all of which are now reflected in C189. Next slide. Right. So now IMO has also monitored the implementation of C189 in various places. On the 10th anniversary, it reports that at least 75.6 million people across the world perform this essential work in or for private households, and a staggering 8 out of every 10 of these domestic workers are informally employed, lacking effective labor and social protection. And in the context of COVID-19, they were the ones who lost their jobs most. Next slide, yes. So look at Jamaica. The inequalities still persist. They've been members since 2016. It says the inequalities still persist. Situation, of course, is largely as a result of the low social and economic value societies usually place on these workers, reflected through the absence of appropriate laws and effective enforcement where laws do exist. The US, internal politics that, there's like in the 1930s, but their own internal politics that was used to harboring slaves and farmhands. The politics was so intense that they had to compromise, and the legislation that came in that was supposed to be the New Deal to properly articulate rights in the workplace excluded domestic workers and farmhands. So what is the situation today in America? Let's go. So a 2021 survey of domestic workers by Domestic Workers Alliance reports of the US is that only 16% of domestic workers have a written agreement with their employer. Over 1/3 of domestic workers do not get meal and rest breaks, and of those that do, only 34% are paid when they are on breaks. 81% of domestic workers receive no pay if their employer cancels on them with less than 3 days notice, and 76% receive no pay if their employer cancels. I haven't even started. 23% of domestic workers do not feel safe at work. My Lord, an application. Yes, please. Because this domestic workers' right does not exist at all. So I think we needed to place it proper foundation. Then, please. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Lord. Right. Next slide. In overview of workers, I'm just going to close it because I won't do details now. Now, I'm looking at what rights do workers have in Nigeria. There are plenty. Okay, the Labour Act defines worker as a person who has entered into or works under a contract with an employer, whether the contract is for manual labor or clerical work, is expressed or implied or oral or written, and whether it's a contract of service or contract personally to execute any work or labor. So, go on please. From our Constitution of 1999 and other laws, plenty of rights, including the huge jurisdiction given to National Industrial Court to look into other areas, including enforcing best practices that are put to it. If it is proved this is in existence, then NICM is allowed to incorporate it. So, and look at the rights that workers have. We have minimum wage, paternity. I hear many organizations now see it as a good way to retain workers. So they give some time, some 2 weeks or so, to young fathers to go and take care of things. So what is the rights of when you are terminated on during probation period? Please, so in researching this, I found that the NICM has made some landmark rulings that have stabilized or strengthened the rights of workers. Because I've said that many workers, the normal workers, don't even know their rights and they don't even bother to enforce their rights. That's the situation of things. So when they're sexually harassed, they keep quiet to retain their job. Their jobs are scarce. I'm talking about what the normal worker enjoys. And now we're going to domestic. Please, just move the slides. I'm now in the floor. Okay, so I went through all this. Please just keep going on. Right. Please go on. Right. These are all the rights that workers, whether they know it or not, are enjoying, including data privacy. The recent gate by the Data Protection Commission, it is emphatic that for you to process private data, you have to get permission of data subject. So even if it's for household, the person has, your domestic worker now has a right to give permission for what you do with their there is provision for training. So if you have domestic workers, and I'm reiterating this as applicable to workers, and now, because of the new law, also applicable to who? Domestic workers. So know this. Next. Okay, so I want to go to the challenges of this proposed law. Rights of workers in Nigeria, from the overview, are many and inclusive. Reality, however, is that many Nigerian workers will be forgiven for not being aware of these rights, right? Non-workers. Those who may be aware of them are more likely to be too skeptical, are more likely to be skeptical in pursuing their rights in court in view of the sluggish grind of the wheels of justice in Nigeria. Law enforcement processes are unreliable. Not even the touted ADR mechanisms that NICM uses provides much comfort. However, have to acknowledge the proactive stance of NICM. It has given some very important decisions, like the Microsoft decision where it decided that if a worker is being harassed and an employer by another employee, and the employer knows of it, even the employer will be liable for damages. Next, please. And then they have also attitudes need reorientation if we're going to make this domestic thing work. Attitudes need to change for both the employers and the employees. It can't be you just glide into work like the driver that told me, madam, I don't think I want to do this work. I said, okay, let's stop. As you see me, so I did very well. I don't near my house in their village. That was how I heard it. Okay, so we need to move away from the servitude that used to be and move to where there is a formalization. That means somebody needs to coach people who become domestic workers that they have rights and they have obligations as well. Can we move a little? Next slide. Next slide is the background. Okay. The other important challenge I will see in formalizing domestic work is that employers would now prefer to maintain the old ways, and therefore some of them might stop employing. Okay, they don't want workers that have rights or know their rights. Government needs to monitor implementation very closely, because even the newly set up agencies can also become problems, because there was a time I was following up on defense. And I found out that for you to set up an agency, you are talking of millions and all. So we also need to know how that there has to be a watchdog and enforcement unit that will monitor. And there has to be some kind of registration. Households, the ones you have already, you need to declare and register, and then make sure you draw up contracts for the ones you already have. Then at National Lawyers Law Teachers Conference, I asked the tax people who were presenting, okay, what will I get rebates for the salaries I pay to my domestic workers? And they said, Madam, your employer has paid you. What you do with your money is your business. So the tax reform system will also have to be reformed to accommodate the employment of domestic workers. I said somewhere that domestic workers need to also be certified. There has to be some kind of training. So if I'm employed, I know the level of certification you have, and I know how to move you. Just flip. Let me see if there's anything I should flip. Yeah. Well. Oh my goodness. So anyway, I also propose that there will be dispute settlement mechanism that will be working. Like you will have them at not dog where there will be they can take short cases. People will work in with their issues and they're resolved for legal. And a whole lot needs to be done if the Domestic Workers Act will work. So this I got from the little certification I went and got on business and decent work. I got the certificate on 2nd November because I needed to understand more about what ILO is talking about. This diagram shows you how the international labor standards are set, and then the fundamental conventions and ratification, it becomes binding, and national legislation is what follows. This will also bind enterprises. So all stakeholders will shift. When this law comes in, there's a whole lot that all of us need to take in. And in 10 years' time, I'm sorry to say, I don't see in 10 years' time that Nigeria would have changed much, but we're hopeful, even as we worry. But there's so much work to be done. And I cited Jamaica because I see Jamaica as close to standard of Nigeria, but I cited the United States, who have very strong institutions and very strong rights. Those of your relations who live abroad, you know how they suffer to get people to come and work for them. We will come to a time, on the bad side, it's possible that we might have increase in criminality if people stop employing domestic workers because they don't want to abide by properly drafted contracts or have to promote them and all of that, or have to pay the minimum wage. Because minimum wage is not starting when you start. Even states are not paying minimum wage yet. They want householders to pay minimum wage to domestic workers. I'm quite, I don't know, I think it's an innovative act, but I'm not terribly optimistic. We just look to God. Thank you. Sorry, Chairman.
Okay. Thank you so very much. But for the constraints of time, I know we will have enjoyed the delivery more than this. You will agree with me, like I said earlier on, that the taste of the pudding is in the eating, the waiting the pudding. Another big round of applause for Dr. So we will now go to the first discussant of this paper, who is Mr. Hygiene Osebara. And please, I know I'll be in a better position to control you. 10 minutes at the most. And don't apply for extension of time because it won't be granted.
Good morning, everyone. I want to use this opportunity to appreciate this platform I'm giving to stand with you this morning to share my thoughts on this topic. I want to appreciate my boss, DAUDU. Yes, and thank you so much for putting up this program of a strong intellectual discourse on criminal law in Nigeria and beyond. So I want to appreciate you. So thank you so much for the platform. I want to thank the organizers. I want to stand on the same protocols to go ahead because I've been told that I will be granted. So yes, quickly proceeding. So I'm asked to speak on the lacunas and the legislation bordering on domestic workers in Nigeria. By way of introduction, I've come to say that domestic work remains one of the most undervalued and least regulated sectors of the Nigerian labor market, despite its significant contribution to social and economic functioning. The Domestic Workers Convention, number 189 of the ILO, has defined domestic workers. Please, next slide, please. Okay, next slide, please. Or that any person engaged in domestic work within an employment relationship, even further to exclude a person who performs domestic work only occasionally or sporadically as not on an occupational basis as a non-domestic worker. Of course, if you are talking about domestic workers, it is not just anybody that runs errands for you. There is, by that definition, anybody who works for you on spontaneous occasion, come and do this training for me, is not a domestic worker in the discourse that we are talking about. Across the country, domestic workers as housekeepers, cook, drivers, stewards, a lot of them, and caregivers, enable the productivity of households and wider economy, providing essential services that are both laborious and sensitive. Let's just take a look at this. If for any reason the work of domestic workers is given to us to do, imagine you be a cleaner. You are compelled to clean your house, wash your car, do everything, even the work of nanny. I want to say that to a great extent it's going to affect our output in our different spheres of life. So their work cannot be undermined. So we're going to look at the level status of domestic workers between informality and recognition. Historically, domestic work in Nigeria has been socially perceived as a private, informal, and sometimes charitable arrangement rather than a contractual labor relationship. Of course, what they feel is that, I'm helping that small boy, I'm helping that small girl. But by our discussion today, it is not just an informal relationship, whereby you are trying to a charitable act, where you are trying to help that person. Where we are moving is that we want to get to a point where the law is clearly defined that this person doing my cleaning is actually a staff, and I owe him all the privileges under a formal work arrangement. Please, can you roll? So that I don't apply for such a time. So 2, let's look at point 2 is existing protections, what the law currently provides. Of course, there is no strong direct legislation that protects the work of the rights of domestic workers in Nigeria. But generally, we can look at the issue of the freedom of discrimination under the Chapter 4 of the Nigerian Constitution, of course, right to dignity of the human person. The fact that there is no strong contractual relationship or defined labor relationship doesn't mean that if somebody is your cleaner, you can begin to pour hot water on him because he didn't clean your car very well. So, aside issue, while we are driving towards the proper legislation, we need to understand that as much that there are laws that are used to their favor, whether it be we're talking about is past or whether it is not past. The issue of right to be past, however, without specific statutory enforcement mechanisms for household employment, these rights are often violated. We have seen people that take their house girl or their houseboy, please. They are not security men. You see them keeping them. You don't go to church, you don't go to mosque, you don't go anywhere, just stay there. And these are not security people. So ordinarily, their right to you, personal liberty, is protected by the Constitution. Of course, if you take a look at the criminal and child protection status, Nigerian Criminal Code, the Penal Code, Child Rights Act, VAP Act, Child Rights Acts, and Child Rights laws are domesticated by several states in the country, you will discover that to a great extent the rights of these people are protected. I want to draw the issue of international labor standards. Nigeria has ratified ILO Domestic Workers Convention 2011, number 189, which means domestic workers in Nigeria are not afforded the same rights and protection regarding working hours, rest period, fair remuneration, and social security. As a matter of fact, if this number 189 of ILO Domestic Workers Convention ratified by Nigeria, it will entitle our workers to issues like resting hours, issues like resting hours, and some other rights that are obtainable in the global platform. Quickly, let's look at the legal lacunas, because this is where I am told to dwell richly. Despite the above framework, several doctrinal and enforcement gaps continue to undermine the rights of domestic workers in Nigeria. Number one, absence of comprehensive domestic workers regulation. There is, as you said earlier, there is no comprehensive legal framework for domestic workers in Nigeria where they can pinpoint and say, oh, these are my rights, these are areas that should touch and areas that should not touch. Issues bordering on standardized employment contracts, as the least has seen before me now. Of course, they just come and start working. There is no formalized standardized contract. Minimum wage applicability. Of course, Section 3, someone of the minimum wage are stated that anybody that people should, the employer should pay use under employment platform not less than 70,000 minimum wage. But Section 4.1 also has exempted by saying that any instance whereby you have less than 25 workers, the minimum wage stuff should not apply. Issues of social security, entitlement, pension, health insurance, and compensation. Of course, all domestic workers in Nigeria, they have any health issue unless you have a private arrangement. There is no statutory imposition saying that employers should make sure that their staff are enrolled into sources like NHIS and pension. I leave the issue of working hours, termination procedures, privacy and safeguards. Let me quickly run to the issue of towards effective legislation. To extend labor practice, labor justice beyond the household, Nigeria was developing a right-based legal regime, specifically targeted at domestic work. Enactment of the Domestic Workers Protection Act sought legislation to provide for mandatory written contracts and regulated working conditions, hours, and rest days. Even God who created human being in the biblical story had to rest on the seventh day. So those who work for us should also have time to rest. Fair remuneration, minimum wage compliance, occupational safety standards adapted to domestic settings, and some other issues that the law should contain. Let's look at the current legislation and protections. The position of the Domestic Workers Bill before the National Assembly. Two earlier bills. Number one, documentation and protection of domestic workers and employers between 24, sponsored by Senator Hussein from Jigawa Northwest, and Informal Sector Employment Agents Regulation Bill 2024, sponsored by Senator Musa Mohammed Sani, Niger East, consolidated in a bill sponsored by a senator from Plateau Central, Senator D.K. Blank. Now, what we have pending before the National Assembly is the bill is consolidated as from my research, the House of Senate passed that bill on 12 November 2025. The House of Reps, on their own part, have not passed that bill. This is what my research discloses. If there's anything contrary to that, I think I'm open to the learning. So let's look at the scope of the coverage. The scope of the coverage, of course, it's a the bill represents a bold legislative step towards formalizing Nigeria's vast informal workspace. Number two, it provides the licensing and regulation of employment agencies so that people can. Thank you so much. Okay, quickly, let me look at the protection under the bill, and plenty are mentioned in there, and then suggestions to wrap it up from there. Why we celebrate the bill as a major legislative innovation in the unregulated sector of our national economy? The following suggestions are given. Number one, the National Assembly should, as a matter of urgency, harmonize the bill with House of Reps and push for the assent before the President so it becomes a law. Number two, there should be special court or tribunal with less practice bottlenecks to ensure ease of denomination of labor disputes arising from domestic workers. Domestic worker cannot afford to queue in the long bottleneck of a control practice. Awareness campaign, because if they are not aware of their rights, how can they be protected? Number 4, thank you so much for this.
Thank you. Please give him another big round of applause. I want to reassure you that all the paper being discussed or presented will be given to all the delegates, either soft copy or even the hard copy for those who are present and in attendance. So our next discussant is Madam Linda Raji, and like we did with your colleague, where is she? Okay, please, the floor for you. You've assured me you'll do your presentation in 10 minutes. I'm sorry, today is Friday, and we need to be on the fast lane.
Thank you, sir. I'll do my best. Good morning, everyone. Please permit me to stand on the protocol established already. I sincerely want to appreciate my coordinator and my father for giving this opportunity. Thank you, sir. So I'll be looking at the key obstacles to enforcement of domestic workers of rights. I'll start by sharing just a few years back at a school, junior secondary school, at Boyd Research, and I had gone with my team for a sensitization event. Girls' rights, education, and all of that, and she looked at me, just write it out, then, for privacy reasons, and disclose whatever they are going through. But this girl looked me dead in the eye, and she said, "You see, I have a right. I'm 17 years old. They brought me in to help a family, and I'm being raped. And I'll be told by the man that if I don't cooperate, I will be sent back home. And if I also don't cooperate, that incident touched me because I was there to sensitize, but this girl was telling me with a defeated look on her face, and I couldn't help her. I noticed another girl with injuries on her body, so at the end of the session, we went to see the principal of the school, Mrs. Oshatoba, and she told me how the school is known for young people who are domestic workers. They brought them around the environment there, and they are tired of being inactive to arrest families and everything. And girls just want to go to school. I don't think to put that out there. Girls just want to go to school. Okay, so informality of recruitment and employment is a major challenge that we're going to contest this domestic workers bill, because many domestic workers are, of course, employed through informal and unlicensed channels. And I was somewhere once when I just overheard a call and was like, "Oh, I need a girl, 16 years old, sent her here." 2 days later, the girl was there, and I just kept wondering, do the parents even know where this girl is right now? What will be her fate? But this is the pattern we have here in Nigeria, why this bill is very important. Recruitment often happens without written contract also. That way, the power imbalance favors the employer, while the domestic workers, especially the underage ones, are left helpless. Now, some existing labor laws may not cover all domestic workers. Employer resistance is another challenge we're expecting because of the fear of increased costs. Some of them pay as low as or as much as 30,000 naira currently, and telling them now to have a fixed wage might not work out because they really cannot afford it. So, of course, they're going to resist the bill. Also, there is a cultural and social norm that sees that or consider domestic workers not really work, especially if people who are engaged in it are semi-literate or illiterate. So they don't feel like they deserve any kind of dignity or whatsoever. Then there is a lack of awareness. Some employers do not know about the obligation of the new bill to be able to enforce it, even if they choose to, which is why awareness is important. Then there is social norms and gender dynamics. Domestic workers are oftentimes women and girls, and that means, of course, they are hardly educated. And I also know that the employers will resist house help asking for their rights to make them very uncomfortable. Underage domestic workers are also very at risk, I would say, and unfortunately, society accepts it that underage girls should come work for family, and nobody really cares what happens to their education. And like I said earlier, girls just really want to go to school, and they will do anything to remain in school because the family they are coming from, either from their community, they might be the first person to be in classroom, and so they will do anything to just manage whatever situation they face and continue being there. Then of course there is the weak institutional capacity. Monitoring private homes where domestic workers operate is going to be quite difficult. With a nation of over 200 million people, it's a Herculean task, but I believe there will be measures in place to make this easier. Then there is data gaps and invisibility. We don't see them, but they are there. We know that domestic workers in homes. A neighbor of mine, 11 p.m. she's yelling at this young girl, yelling and screaming, and I'm just thinking, your daughters are sleeping. Let this girl rest. We see this all the time, and unfortunately, this is why this bill is also important. Then, of course, resistance from intermediaries, as the recruitment agencies. It's easy for them and very convenient as it is right now because they don't have to go through any requirements to just get the girls from these vulnerable communities and underserved communities. This means that unlicensed and unscrupulous agencies may continue operating if the enforcement is weak. Then there's the risk of retaliation, even among the workers. They may lose their job, domestic workers may lose their job if they start to demand their right. Just recently I was in touch with a deaf girl, I've known since 2021, and she has been in domestic help in her family, or in the family she's supporting, and she finally reached out to WhatsApp. I met her in school one time for an outreach. And if you think life is hard for the average girl, you can imagine the deaf girl who cannot communicate, which is why education was important to her. She had to endure, but she said she had reached her breaking point and had to involve the community leaders, and they saw to it that we sent her back to Benue. Just 2 nights back, she sent me a message that she has gotten admission to the Kent University here and National State University, but of course, the people will not be able to help her anymore, and she's currently at the crossroad. Unionizing or organizing might expose domestic workers to the risk of losing their job. Now, let's really examine the institutional and legal frameworks, oversight agencies, and documentation systems that will be necessary for effective implementation. I'll start with the regulatory agencies. Then, according to the bill, through the National Assembly, the National Directorate of Employment will be empowered to license and supervise private employment agencies. Hopefully this works out because they will need periodic inspection and audit of these agencies to ensure compliance. Then also they very need mandated read for written contracts and agreements, specifying wages, working hours, rest, duties, and even termination. It protects the employers also so that they can know the background of the domestic workers coming into their homes. Then there will be model contracts also to this effect, and like a contract template and guidance developed by the Ministry of Labour. Then Labour Inspectorate empowerment. So Labour inspectors can be trained, especially for domestic work issues, and given the mandate to inspect homes, mediate and enforce in private homes. Then there should be mechanism for anonymous or safe reporting through hotlines, mobile reporting, so that the workers can report violations without fear of immediate retaliation from their employers. Social benefits and mechanisms already mentioned earlier: healthcare, pension, insurance, and other enrollment. Then grievance dispute resolution, set up a dedicated body or work with existing bodies, such as under the Ministry of Labour, for handling domestic workers' specific disputes, possibly harassment and non-payment issues, and of course abuse. Then awareness and education campaign. Government agencies like the National Orientation Agency, in partnership with civil society organizations and NGOs, should run awareness programs for both domestic workers and employers about their rights and their responsibility, and how to use the registration database and where to seek help. I also recommend using community level engagement, given the highly private nature of domestic workers. Women leaders in communities are very useful tools to engage through community-based NGOs to step down knowledge to the families with the girls and women interested in working like this. And during the project for the budget, we really made sure that we ensured ownership. It's often said that nothing for us without us. If community members are in vulnerable communities or underserved communities are often those who go for such work, domestic work, then of course this bill should involve them all the way. They know where it pinches, and through the community leaders and women leaders, they can now hold these sensitization sessions and inform the families of how to get help once the bill is passed. Then during our project work, we had to involve the community leaders, and we told them that, okay, this is the rule. The boys are here to learn the skill, and we don't want them abused, because we know the artisan system, hefty punishment that almost make them handle criminals. And of course, the artisans resisted, but we said this is our rule. If you maltreat these boys, you are out. And the community leaders accepted. So when a particular incident happened, the community leader came up, the health came up, handled the case, terminated that particular artisan's case. That was when they called us and told us this happened and taking care of it. So this is why it's important to involve community members from the planning stage so that they know what it's about, know their right, and take ownership. Then legal safeguard of children. Legal safeguard of children. As young people should be in school, and I know it might be difficult to take out young people or young girls and women in this case from even applying to the domestic work, but at least we can negotiate having them in school and give them enough time to attend to their assignments so that their academic can proceed. Also, unionizing will go a long way. My time is up, sorry. I would just like to conclude by saying there are other countries that have international best practices like the Philippines. They ensure registration, then there's a model contract and regulated agencies. Then we have Brazil also successfully doing this. They have a robust full labor rights for the domestic workers and social protection mechanisms. South Africa here also have sectoral minimum standards for domestic workers, and I believe Nigeria can do that also. Then they train their inspectors to go around the communities and check on the families. The ILO Convention 189 is also a global benchmark for decent domestic work. So the issue of invisibility and data gaps will be addressed by registration and household surveys. Employer resistance will be reduced by education campaigns, phased out pilots, showing benefits, and informal recruitment addressed by licensing, regulating agency, and requiring contract copies. Then enforcement in private home will be mitigated by adapted inspector protocols, safe reporting channels, and local service points in the community, at the community level. Then underage domestic child labor, blocked by age studio at least 16 years. It's sad to see 7 years old girls brought into for such work. Then schooling, enforcement, and targeted inspection. Thank you so much.
You will all attest and testify that so passionate about this subject that if we give her another 30 minutes, she will still be firing from all cylinders. So, another big round of applause. Thank you so much. Now we'll go to our main man. In your delivery, don't terrify anybody. And you won't get more than the 10 minutes everybody got. So we call on our next discussant, Dr. Balogun to give us his opinion, his thoughts in 10 minutes.
That came out from this research.
You've already spent 1 minute.
My opinion is better, maybe I am appealing just 5 minutes extra. I'm within time, sir. I'm appealing.
And job and ruling.
Okay, sir. Okay. Please slide P4. Okay. What pains me is that leadership in this country, we make sure without data decision making. We just jump into a decision when we eat and we drink and we have nothing to do. I'm not an idealist or a utopian dreamer. We are talking as if the country has not employment everywhere. What is the definition of the domestic worker? It's not that the big country is informal. What is the percentage in the country? It runs into millions. Why are we saying that we the table shows that the employers of these domestic workers, who are the individual households, including poor people, they engage them because the supply is higher. This informs, that's why we have a statement of self-government. It lies in recognizing the remote and proximate cost, why domestic workers are being abused and impaired by their employment, and why this proposed legislation, if it's being implemented, will fail. Because of those factors, the research question look at the topics is okay. The topic beyond the household, legal protection, lacunas, legislation, the right of domestic worker. On my eyes, how do other jurisdictions protect domestic workers? We have to look at how the other jurisdictions protect the domestic workers. There is one role can unionization and collective bargaining play in empowering domestic workers. I'm going to defeat delay slightly. I know the right as regards violence and sexual abuse is good. We look into that one. But my first question, how do other jurisdictions protect domestic workers? My work is centered on what can unionization do? Why do Nigerians, especially the other, see job opportunities as domestic workers? With the enforcement right effective, where implemented considering the present Nigerian socio-economic reality, where are the lacunas? What are the lacunas? The objective to seek to allow jurisdiction to protect their workers to investigate and to understand whether the right to be implemented. Significant is not to know that lies in the potential to inform government. We need to inform government. Why the legislation will not work is because of domestic workers social decline and not resolved. Individuals, they are the major employer of the domestic worker. Well, I know the factor with individual households. They are very poor on the average. They are not rich like the president make a pronouncement that make me come with this my conceptual clarification. After they ratified the minimum wage, 70,000, it came out on here and said, henceforth, every worker in Nigeria must pay their workers also 70,000. That is if I make any 70,000, I'll just take it and pay the others for 70,000. Do you know what I don't want to say the reality is that you are the leadership because they are not cerebral. They don't make anything. They don't make any research. That belongs to data-driven decision making. It's a must. Why we use this conceptual clarification that decisions are based on empirical evidence and data analysis rather than intuition or anecdotal experience, not on no personal experience. It should be based on research. And the other benefits, improve efficiency, improve outcome, increase transparency, and enhance accountability. We also have the factor of principles. I try to look at factor of principles because in Nigeria, it's the only country that negates economic principles. People don't want to bear the implication. There is a law of supply whereby when you have excess supply, price will come down. And apply to this domestic workers. When you have a lot of domestic workers, we are going to pay anything they like. There are issues that we are never considering. What of brands that are working as domestic workers that are paying 20,000, 30,000? We are not looking at it. There is still an economic crisis in Nigeria. But we see that maybe because I'm within the elite zone. As a recession, we interact with all Nigerians. People are really poor, extremely poor. So when we come here and start saying, wow, they are saying that that's why they never approach it. How do you do next? Do you have the workforce? Then I went to told you number of principles of life. The reality is that for domestic worker, I they say there will be when you apply to domestic workers, they are going to be reduced because they are in excess supply. They lack the ability to even negotiate because they are in excess. The principle of the law of supply applies to them also. But I'm not talking about someone that is great. You say, no, you see, I have a personal driver that is a graduate. I pay 30,000. And I don't think I can give you more. Because I think if I want to start today, we will refuse because there are more than 10 people waiting. In the house that I need. People are not getting jobs. But how can I think Nigeria will do job? Now, then we went to the theoretical framework. I look at system theory. System theory, I'll talk about it. It's not something interdependence in the world, and the fact that the world is an interconnected. Every decision you make affects the other person. Those things don't affect. That's why we look at the other theory, interdependence theory. This interdependence, it just says that everything you do, there's interdependence. You can't do anything like my action affects you. Just like we bring us to the issue of the butterfly effect theory. In the butterfly effect theory, even at times slight positive that things you've done, or maybe little things that you've done may affect somebody negatively. Then I go into the methodology so that I won't be. The methodology, because I have to convert the guy's fast so that I won't be indicted. Then becomes academia. And at the end of the day, we look at the first thing I look at the first design question. They say, how does that jurisdiction protect our domestic workers? Dubai, they have robust. Dubai has robust package for their domestic workers. They're between 1,361,000 to $13,000. That is that. Oh yeah. And we go there. Then please go to page 15. Go to page 15. Page 15, please. Page 15, I'll go by paper analysis. I won't waste time, please. Okay, look at page 15 for God's sake. Nigeria GDP per PPP is just, Nigeria GDP per PPP is just 9,488. Nigeria GDP per nominal is just 835. Nigeria GNP per capita is 1,450. The UAE GDP per capita is 84,000 naira, 450. Please put the table. You can see from the table, UAE GDP per nominal is 51,000 naira and above. UAE GNP per capita 49,000 naira. So when they implemented this domestic, they have brilliant, they have the money. Do you know the fine for native domestic? You pay about 30 million. At times you violate their English because they have to be taught that you must go out for crossing. Sorry, I'm sorry, I'm not being. Okay. So in Nigeria, an average domestic worker earns 6,000 to 70,000 naira. That's on average. If now I pay about 15,000 and even the large of it, if I send it with the country back, because in the informal sector, we are talking as if it is the informal, it never is the informal sector. And coming to the across of my research, then in UAE, they pay $272 to $599 for their domestic worker. You can see the difference. Okay. So I'll go straight to unionization and collective bargaining because that's my research question too. When we talk about union and collective, unionization is a process where you form a board or trade union and make the union work process. What has union done for us in Nigeria? Somebody asked me 14 questions and I couldn't answer. By the way, there's one thing that I want to bring to our notice. We should be careful when we are talking about unionization. It's not the time of others to show money. The compromise for corruption factor undermine their existence. And you know they are not celebrating, they are not celebrating, and you don't research. My Lord, we can't really nice. Okay. So what I say that, and you know, each time you go for salary agreement, the economy collapse. Each time you go, economy collapse, they lose it. And the reason why they have terrible debt pricing. If you go to page 21 of my work, you see that the internal debt profile of my chart page 21 please, and round up. And when you look at page 22, page 21 please, let me look at the graphs and chart. I won't waste your time. See the debt profile, it's worrisome. Because you don't care, you don't consider it. Page 21 please. Yeah, look at then next 22. External debt. Look at external, it's all going to us. We're doing well to do that, to jump over. God, you keep on worrying. How do we face that problem from 2018 to 2020? only to laptop. Then we bring out to our research question number 4. Fact that make young girls seek job of network and informer. The reality that this job, because they are out of school, the conflict everything, mitigate the you don't have good teacher, even the school they are in rural areas. And when you look at page, please go to page, go to page 29, around of 28 and 29. It shows the gap out of school children is 18.3 million. We all be ashamed of ourselves as a country. And we are making law. As of 2025, the UTAKO say that let me read it. UNICEF. Out of every 5 people that drop out of the global, 1 is from Nigeria. Out of every 5, out of school children, 1 is from Nigeria. And when you look at go to the next, go to page 29, look at the number 18. That means the supply chain is enormous. That people keep on rolling out supply, and the people demand and supply stands. If you don't take care of them, we have problem. Then we come to our finding. Our finding is that the UAE has a better generalization field for advanced collective rights of them. The president that was they are weak, and some don't get job because of challenge. The fact will still be there. Then we go back to our recommendation. We mentioned the corruption factor because I was trying to be the time. The reality is that this corruption and this bad organizing factor, as far as we will have the problem of unemployment. Because when you look at the unemployment, if I go back, in Nigeria is the only country that when there is growth, there's still unemployment. Why? Because of sectoral imbalance. How come sectoral imbalance is because most of these industrialists and economically they control the regulation. They call it regulative capture. We have the automation of activities whereby the job of 300 can be done by a machine. So lay off those people. And I've been talking about that sectoral imbalance. Brings us to this critical issue of GDP. In Nigeria, there is this report that GDP is growing there. People are very, very poor. Why are people very poor? Because people is not like putting down with it and okay, they like this. And look at the average. Then when you look at the average, realize I have maybe 1 trillion naira. It's not that's the simple analogy. Because the average look at everybody and divide, they don't know that only few people benefit. That is the challenge that we have. And we have to all dispatch. The graduates that we are willing now, they can't even work. What is not there? They don't even have the skill to do anything. That's why some of them are doing domestic work. So when you look at all the factors, this unemployment rate, the poverty level, it enhances issues that will not make the legislation work. Because who will even implement? We are talking about over 340 million people. Well, as we monitor the existing one. The reality that the existing, okay, yes sir, the conclusion, the existing, okay, the existing domestic worker, the existing worker, they are not doing well at all. So, for you to take care of the domestic worker, which I agree, you have to look at other factors. You have to address the issue of poverty, bad governance, corruption. When we look at it, maybe we'll be in a better position to do proper implementation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We can see that if, as they say, he wishes to our houses, beggars will ride. We know if we have more time on our hand, we will have a better, opportunity to derive the best from the presentation being done by these discussers and the presenters. Once again, a very big round of applause for. So we now go to the interactive stage, and we'll take the few questions that we can take, both from the glass house and from those in attendance. So MC. And please comment, questions, 1 minute. You can leave the introductions and you can just mention your name and then you know, speak for just 1 minute and give to the next person.
My name is Monday Aji. For purpose of commenting on this topic, it appears we like applies to policy in anything we are doing. We wake up in the day, we don't go into data, no anything on ground to ascertain the purpose of certain laws, but we just rush into it. Just like what we have all agreed here, that the problem we have is implementation. One, if we are making laws, the one we had before, that's the open one, labor, employment and employee relationship, we cannot protect the workers at that level. These are statutory flavor workers. How much more the one you do domestically that nobody can see except angels and God? So what are the implementation? See, the problem is not about enforcing making law. I said this several times. A time is coming that we will be exporting laws to African countries because we have more than enough in Nigeria. But we don't have the mechanism. So we are not agreeing today by all our position that the enforcement mechanism is not on ground. Because, take for example, Lagos law on issue of tenant and landlord. How many enforcement are they able to do? Government is not encouraging how they will go into housing policy so that people have house. Then there will be no problem between landlord and tenant. All what they are doing is just to make laws to regulate a private person who has right to dictate what you want to take. Now, if we go by this law we are talking about, don't you think that we're going to commit more damage to this individual we are trying to help? Because if I decided not to employ them today, and I have 5 already, and Mr. D refused to employ them because of this policy, what becomes the fate of these individuals? Would there be no more additional Boko Haram on ground and corporate all around doing evil for the society? So I'm just giving this comment that we should know and think deeply before we go into this aspect. Otherwise, we do ourselves good rather than doing ourselves bad, rather than doing ourselves good. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chinelo Bozo. I have an intervention and also a question for Mr. Ibeka, the speaker who talked about lacunas in our laws. Mine is on issue of statutes. Now, if you look at the Child Rights Act, the Child Rights Act defines a child as a person who is 18 or under. Then you now look at section 28, which prohibits exploitative labor for children. And that provision says that, subject to this act, no child shall be subjected to any forced or exploitative labor or employed in work in any capacity except where he is employed by a member of his family on light work of agriculture, horticulture, or domestic character. Then the problem with this provision, you ordinarily look at it and you say, okay, employed by a member of family to do so and so. You go to the interpretation section of that law and you see the definition of family. It says, family in relation to a child includes a person who has parental responsibility for the child and a person with whom the child is living or has been living. I think this is problematic. If you have to allow this provision to stand, what people do is that they pick these children and they are living with them. And these are children who are under 18. They are now subjected to exploitative labor. They are not being treated as family the way they should be treated as family, but at the same time they cover. I'm saying that even if you pass this law, if nothing is done to redefine the definition of family, or something is not done to change what is existing under the Child Rights Act, I think we are going to have some major problems. The other issue I wanted to talk about is the data of domestic workers. We have this practice where when somebody wants to live with you, you take the person to the hospital, they run their medical checks, so that you're sure this person does not have any sort of communicable disease that they are bringing into the home. What I have noticed is that hospitals do not care about consent, nobody asks questions. There's nothing that, even government hospitals, you just walk in, they say, okay, is it out there? Oh yeah, now go to this side. They will just run the test, give you results. I think that is a major breach, and I think the foundation should please take note of this and communicate to all stakeholders that this is a breach. I think there should be even a tripartite kind of agreement, the hospital, the patient, the staff, and the employer. Thank you.
Well, I've already taken the microphone. There are no questions from Lakoja. Now, just 2 points. I think there's a misconception somewhere that, especially, I don't mind the rest, but Dr. Malogun appears to think that house helps do not deserve human rights because they are in excess supply. It does not matter, in my own view, whether there is a supply ratio of 100 to 1 employer. They are entitled to their domestic workers' rights. I think the converse should have been, if you cannot pay them what they are entitled to, don't enjoy their service. You can't eat your cake and have it. After all, a lot of people have sources of other extra income. And I can bet you, if you don't pay them what they're entitled to get, they will take the money from another way. They may arrange kidnapping of your children. They may violate members of your family. You will lose it one way or the other. So it is not terrible at all to, first of all, even compare us with other nations. We are on our own lane. They are on their own lane. And we have to ensure that the way we do our things, we should do it properly, within the right context. So, the mere fact that, and I don't even believe that their supply is in excess if every other law is working. If laws related to putting children in school is working, if there is free education, if the state is discharging its own functions, you will not have on the streets. There will even be in short supply for these exploitative services that people force them to render. So, my problem with the legislation is that it must also take into consideration other factors. So as first of all, to deplete the number of people available. Because why should you have free service? People who go abroad, a lot of people who have Japan, they do their own work. But here we just sit down, stretch our legs, go Magan, and then we call this thing. So the problem starts with us, with the attitude of the employers. The victims are those that we just, and they retaliate. As soon as they come, they work for you for 1 year, they're not enjoying it. They pick up 1 or 2 things, they go for Christmas, they don't return. And it disrupts your activities. When children are going to school again in the new year and the rest, the activities are disrupted. But if you treat them kindly, you have a contract with them, if there is they too will be willing to breach it. Well, I do not want to take too much time, but just to say that some of these things go beyond mere theoretical or academic postulations. You need to look at it from a human and from factors that are already, if you are here applying theories to it, and the rest, you may come back with results that will not be realistic or applicable to the situation. So thank you very much.
In the absence of questions, I do not envisage message that the lead presenter or any discussant. Do they have any question? Two minutes. No extension of time.
Thank you, sir. Backing up what Chief DAUDU just said, you see, the problem within households is that there are human elements that we're dealing with, and there's human rights, and it is international, it's global. Nigeria is not an exception. Nigeria cannot single itself out and say, our peculiar circumstances is such that we cannot abide by human rights. I actually expressed a lot of pessimism because I know the Nigeria we have and our attitude to human rights. Okay, but that has to improve. That has to change. The fact of this law is what's going to give the challenge for us to go in that direction. It's not a question of demand and supply. It's a question of dealing with human beings in the home. You know, if you remember all that thing they put on social media about the madam who puts the house help in one corner and takes her own children and they're all feeding sumptuously while the house help is waiting. There's so much that is going on in our society that needs to be corrected. It will take us a long time because we have attitudes that are ingrained against human rights consciousness. But that is the task we must keep pushing for. Thank you, Bilal, for that.
Thank you so much. Okay. I deliberately left my remarks so I'm very brief about it. In the course of the presentation and discussion, we've all been intimated and enlightened about what household amounts to, domestic workers, and the like. I now want to just touch briefly on this issue, this very silent and very serious or monumental issue that we are discussing today from the template of Islam. And that is to the effect that every person by default setting is a leader or in the least a potential leader. Thus, Islam advocates and encourages a very high sense of duty and the most upright leadership values at all levels of human existence, and more particularly at the level of the household that engenders the ultimate transformation into the larger society. Hence, there must be apparent show of affection, kindness, and manifest identification with both the mental and physical well-being of all the members of a given and or particular household. It is a bounden duty. In fact, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in one of his hadiths says, "Ar-rajul ra'i ala ahli baytihi wa huwa mas'ulun an ra'iyatihi," that a man is the guardian over his family household and is solely responsible for their well-being in all ramifications. So domestic workers, so to say, can be likened to our brothers and sisters whom God has placed under our command and control. So this hadith goes further to tell us that whoever has his brother or sister under his watch should feed him or her from what he eats and dress him or her in what he wears. In an ideal situation or set up, you go into a house and you don't even know the child of that house or somebody who is an outsider or somebody who is just being adopted or being trained in that house. In those good old days, you go into the house, you don't know who is a cousin, who is a niece or a nephew, because they all share the same thing alike. So And in fact, in Islamic ideal situation, we have been enjoined that we should not assign work that will overburden or overwhelm these domestic workers. And if you dare do so, you are enjoined to assist them. And this is, from this hadith, that is where some Islamic jurists evoke the concept that when you give them additional work, then it's either you increase their salary or you pay them overtime so that they will enjoy working. And a perfect example of this is when you go abroad, for overtime you get double the rate that you get for normal work. For work on public holidays, you get double the rate. So people enjoy doing overtime and they enjoy working on public holidays. So then I want to draw attention briefly to another aspect or another hadith saying of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says, "Atu al-ajira ajrahu qabla an yajifa arakahu," meaning give the pay the hired workers, your domestic staff, your household, his wage before his sweat dries. And that is why you don't pay them token. You pay them what will gladden their hearts so that they can do your work even beyond what we have assigned to them. Admittedly, law is not morality, legality, law is not moral, legality is not morality. How be it, with or without adequate protective legislations, lacunas and all, on the right of domestic workers, let us be reminded that whoever is willing to secure his own happiness or to secure the good of others has already secured his own happiness and good. The universal golden doctrine is do unto others what you wish to be done for you. Indeed, the reverse of any given situation could have been the reality. John Bradford was credited to have said, "Dear, but for the grace of God, go I." So that type of circumstances or situation that we find domestic workers could have been one of us. It was just grace and mercy of God that elevated us, and that is why we shouldn't look down on those who are below us. In conclusion to my remarks, it has been said, and aptly too, that our prime purpose in this life is to help others. And if you cannot help them, at least, please, don't hurt, exploit, or add to their misery. Muhammad Ali, the greatest boxer, said, "Service, kindness to all." So once again, I thank the Rule of Law Development Foundation for giving me this opportunity to share this session. And we pray our Almighty God will continue to energize and enable the founder coordinator. And I also join in the prayer that the foundation should convert and become an institute. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairman, for that wonderful remark.